Alrighty, folks, let's talk about the election of 1980. Now, the election of 1980 is also known as the Reagan Revolution because this is when Ronald Reagan and his system and his style of conservatism is going to really take root in the United States. Now, Jimmy Carter is the president. Now, Carter is considered a weak president. He's got an average approval rating of 45.5%, which is incredibly low. I think that's at this point was like the highest that any president has had as approval rating and still been reelected was right around 48%. It was higher than this. So Carter has a very low approval rating at this time, and that's going to be a major problem for Carter. Additionally, Carter is going to face a serious primary challenge. Now, this is going to lead to a weaker general election. Now, there's one thing that you can look at when a president is up for re-election to determine whether or not they have a good chance of winning that re-election. At least in modern history, is the presidents that have lost that re-election have had a low approval rating, and they've also had a major primary challenge. This is going to be exactly what's happening with Carter. He's going to be challenged by Ted Kennedy. Now, Ted Kennedy is a senator from Massachusetts, and he's going to carry a lot of weight for a number of reasons. The largest being that he is a Kennedy. He is a strong politician. He does have some of his baggage, but Kennedy is a strong politician. He is very well liked, particularly among the progressives. Okay, he is seen as a more progressive option and representation of the party, whereas Carter is more middle of the road. Kennedy is going to be much more liberal. He's also the younger brother of John F. Kennedy, who is a very well-liked, beloved figure in the United States, particularly within the Democratic Party, and Robert F. Kennedy, or RFK, another individual, former Attorney General under his brother JFK, nearly won the presidential nomination in 1968 before being assassinated, is a very well-liked individual, particularly among the Democratic Party as well. He is the younger brother. Some argue that Ted Kennedy is actually a better politician than JFK and RFK ever were. So Ted Kennedy's got a lot of weight coming into this one. Additionally, we're going to have Jerry Brown, who's going to be the governor of California in the 1970s, and then later in the in the 2000 teens, he's also going to be the governor again. Jerry Brown's going to come in there and challenge Carter as well. Brown's not going to be near as effective, but Ted Kennedy is going to lead a very successful primary challenge to Carter and nearly defeat Carter in the primary. However, Carter is going to come out victorious. Now, on the Republican side of things, we got Ronald Reagan. Reagan is the former governor of California. He's a former actor, president of the Screen Guild Association at one point. He's going to challenge Ford for the nomination in 1976. Ford, again, was someone who was viewed as a very weak presidential candidate, as we've talked about already. And Reagan is nearly going to win the nomination in 1976. So he's kind of seen as the front runner early on to the Republican nomination in 1980. He is going to be challenged by George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, who's a former ambassador to the United Nations, also former director of the CIA. Reagan is much more conservative than Bush is. Bush is more of the moderate. Okay, so if you look at the Democratic side, you've got Carter as more of the moderate, and you've got Kennedy as more of the radical, is a word I'll use here. Not the best word, but it's a word I'll use. This Republican side is kind of like Bush is more of like the Carter, Reagan is more of like the Kennedy right through here. Now, during one of the primary debates, we're going to get this big, later is going to come back to haunt Bush, but when they're talking about economics and Reaganomics and trickle-down economics that Reagan is going to be proposing, Bush is going to come out and say, we can't have this voodoo economics. Voodoo, again, talking about that practice of like pins and needles and stuff going on. He's like, this isn't going to work. This is witchcraft voodoo. We can't have voodoo economics. We got to have something better. Again, Reagan is much more conservative than Bush. And this is going to come back to haunt Bush later on because Reagan is going to win the nomination and Bush is going to be appointed as his vice president. So it's going to be Reagan and Bush. Now, this is going to come back to hurt Bush because people are going to use this against him. How are you all of a sudden supporting this man who's got these voodoo economics? So one thing that can be learned here that's going to be learned by a number of other individuals later on when they're running for president is if they want that nomination as vice president, should they not win, they've got to be careful not to criticize someone to a point where it's going to end up hurting them later on. Now, the economy is a major issue in the election of 1980. As you can see here on this graph, if you look between 1970 and 1980, the American economy is going down. Okay, it was 40% of the global GDP in 1960, and then as a result of the 70s, it's going to drop from the mid or upper 30s all the way down to the low mid 20s, right around through there. Okay, this is going to be a major problem. Reagan, in one of the debates, is going to utter his famous line, "Are you better now than you were 4 years ago?" which is a very effective argument for Reagan to be making in this election. Carter's running for re-election. They're saying simply, are you better now than you were 4 years ago? If not, he's clearly not working. Vote for me. And this is going to really be very successful. Additionally, the Iran hostage crisis is going on during this election. It starts in 1979, so the entire election of 1980. This huge crisis was really hanging over the head of Carter, and Carter could not resolve this situation, which makes Carter look weak. Okay, we're going to have division within the Democratic Party as well. When there is division within your party, it is not looking good for your chances of re-election. Liberals are not happy with Carter. They wanted Kennedy. They do not view Carter as liberal enough, and they do not like him. There's not a lot of momentum within the Democratic Party to re-elect Carter, which is going to hurt Carter as well. Reagan also is incredibly charismatic. Reagan is known as the great communicator. He really was able to communicate with individuals. He had a wonderful sense of humor. He's going to play to evangelicals in the South as well. This is really kind of the beginning of the evangelicals supporting the Republican Party with people like Jerry Falwell. He's coming out and like, well, I'm the most Christian of all these individuals. Carter isn't a Christian. I'm the true Christian right through here because I believe in this and this and this. Really capitalizing like on the abortion debate right through here. Opposition to some of the social issues that liberals are more in favor of and Republicans would not be. Conservatives such as like gay marriage, these different things. Reagan's really going to latch onto the evangelicals, and that's going to help catapult him to victory. And it is a massive victory for Ronald Reagan. And I mean, it is a whooping, as you can see right here on the electoral map. There was going to be an independent candidate who did get 5 million votes, which is a fairly large percentage of the vote. When you really look at their argued who he took votes from, it really doesn't matter in this election. Okay, Reagan's going to win with 489 electoral votes compared to 50 or 49 votes right there. In order to be elected president, you need 270. Carter gets his butt whooped. He's going to win his home state of Georgia, Minnesota, West Virginia, Maryland, and Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C., and Hawaii. But Carter is just going to get his butt whooped, and this is the Reagan Revolution. Ronald Reagan becomes president. If you have any questions, comments, put it down below. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Good luck.